The Street Files. A complete mystery short story. Every Wednesday. File 38. The Hampstead Heath Mystery. It's a Sunday in June, and Poppy is home for the weekend from Bristol University. Her mother, Olivia, suggests that they go for a walk on Hampstead Heath and have lunch at the Spaniards Inn on the western edge of the 790 acres of grassland that sits in North London. They come out of the tube station and head east along Flask Walk until they reach the edge of the heath. The path dips down into a dry river valley, then up towards the summit of Parliament Hill in the distance, but they turn off before that towards the mansion Kenwood House that sits on another rise in the land, overlooking the wide open space. After passing the house, they walk up the driveway to Kenwood to reach Hampstead Lane and continue further along to the pub. The women get a seat outside and order chicken milanese and cheddar and pancetta burger. Over lunch, Olivia talks about the cases she's been working on, and Poppy talks about student life as a first-year law undergraduate. By 2:30, they pay the bill and weave their way back down the lane and in through the walls that line the border of the heath. As they retrace their steps down the driveway and reach Kenwood, they can see an ambulance parked on the roadside. A paramedic with fair hair and in his 30s is just shutting the doors as they draw up next to him. "Nothing serious, I hope," says Olivia to the man. "We came out here because an old lady fell over," he says. "She's fine now. Had to sit down and a cup of tea. But my colleague has wandered off somewhere. I can't find her anywhere. I'll have a look around." "Oh, she's probably helping someone else," says Poppy, smiling. And they continue down the driveway to the mansion. Poppy wants to see the Rembrandt and the Vermeer that are on display inside the house, so the mother and daughter slip inside the neo-classical grandeur and go around the galleries. As they come out, the paramedic that they met before is on the long gravel driveway that runs across the front of Kenwood. He's looking down over the grass and scanning the people in the far distance, as the land runs down to the pond called the £1,000 Pond, far below. "Any luck finding your colleague?" says Olivia. He laughs and shakes his head. "I don't know where she's gone. Could be anywhere." "We'll keep a lookout," calls back Olivia as they descend down and walk away from the house, towards the trees in the valley below. There's a bridge over the water when they arrive near the woodland. "That bridge is fake, did you know?" says Poppy. "It's an illusion. It's just the front. It's called the Sham Bridge." "I never knew that," says Olivia. They inspect the mirage over the water before they hear voices nearby. Along the bank of the pond, they can see a group of people near the water's edge. When they walk over, they can hear more of the conversation. "Call the police," says a man with black hair and pale blue eyes. "We can't get her out from here." "What's happened?" says Poppy to everyone. "An ambulance woman is floating in the water," says the man. "We can't reach her. Someone went to get a pole to drag her to the bank." Poppy can see a dark-haired young woman in the distance coming from the house and holding some sort of long stick. When she arrives, everyone can see that it's a pole to open the windows in the mansion. The young woman starts to try to get the pole hooked around the floating paramedic, and Poppy helps her. After a minute, the body is by the bank, and the other people drag the woman onto the grass. Olivia goes down on her haunches and checks for a pulse. "Are you a doctor?" says the man. "No, but I've had some medical training." "I'm afraid the woman's dead." Everyone makes an audible gasp after she says the words. Then no one says any more for a few moments, as silence drops in around the group. Eventually, Olivia says, "Has someone called the police?" "I did," says the man. "I think we met her colleague, Poppy, up by the house." I'll go and get him. Poppy runs back up the hill to the mansion. Slowly the group of people start to drift away, and by the time Poppy returns with the ambulance man, only the black-haired man and the young woman are left with Olivia. "Is this your colleague?" says Olivia to the paramedic as he arrives with Poppy. The man frowns. "Yes, that's her." "Did anyone see her fall in?" says Poppy. "I saw her before that," says the young woman. "She was talking to you, wasn't she?" She turns to the black-haired man. "Not me," he says. "Some other bloke. He'd hurt his arm, I think." "The police are here," says Poppy, and she indicates a female police officer walking down from Kenwood. "I'm Constable Warren," she says. "All stand back, please." Warren inspects the body and turns to the ambulance man. "Your work colleague, was she? What's her name?" "Madeline Fuller." "What's your name, sir?" "Peter Marshall." Warner stands up and talks to everybody. "Did anyone witness anything?" "We all did," says the young woman. "Then I'll need to talk to all of you." She looks around the area. "There's a bench over there. Congregate there and wait for me, please." "It's not very deep in that pond," says the black-haired man. "You can drown from a simple slip on the bank, sir." "She was poisoned," says Olivia. "She has cyanosis on her lips and fingernails." "Are you a doctor, madam?" says Warner. "I'm trained in toxicology, officer. Cyanosis is the blue colouring on her hands and face. It's due to oxygen deprivation just before death, which means she had something in her system that killed her. A high quantity of sedative is the most likely cause of that." "My forensic team is on the way, so we'll know soon," says Warner. "But thank you. Now if you would all give me your names and wait by the bench, I'll be with you immediately." The people walk over to the seat and wait. Olivia and Poppy are near to the ambulance man. "Tell us about Madeline," says Olivia. "She really cared about doing her job well. I miss that. She had a passion for it." They can see that his eyes are watery. "What about her life outside work?" "She had a boyfriend, Stephen. Not sure they were getting on that well." "How do you know?" says Olivia. "Did she confide in you?" "Yes. We've been working together 5 days out of every 7, 10 hours a day sometimes with overtime, for 4 years. So we had plenty of time to talk." "What else do you know about her?" says Olivia. "Her folks passed away when she was a kid. She's an only child and was brought up by her aunt in Woodford." "What do you know about Stephen, her boyfriend?" says Poppy. "He's a tree cutter, arborist, and a landscape gardener, that sort of thing," says Peter. "Always outdoors. She wore the trousers, though. She had the power in that relationship." "Tell us more about today," says Olivia. "Poppy and I first saw you up by the driveway at Kenwood, and you said you couldn't find Madeline then. That was about 2:45? What time did you arrive to attend to the old lady who fell over?" "About 2, he says. "Take us through the timeline. You both arrived and parked on the driveway. What then?" "I put on my backpack, which has got medical supplies in it. We use the backpacks if we can't get the vehicle near the patient. We walked down the driveway and out to the front of Kenwood. The lady had fallen over on the long path that runs at the top of the slope. We both attended to her. I knelt down and checked her over. She was fine, just a bit frightened, so we helped her up and walked her to one of the benches. I gave her some painkillers for her ankle and just chatted to her." "Where was Madeline while you were doing that?" says Olivia. "I didn't notice," he says. "But when I stood up and the old lady's friend said she'd sit with her a bit longer, I started looking for Madeline. And that's when I noticed she'd gone. I looked around a bit, but no luck. So I went back to the ambulance to drop off my backpack. That's when you two walked by. We went into the house to look at the paintings," says Poppy. "That was about 45 minutes. Then we saw you again." "So it's about 3:30, says Olivia. She looks at her Omega watch. "Sadly, I think Madeline had died by then. Judging by the effects of the water on her skin, She'd been in the pond for an hour at least when we got her out. "Peter Marshall?" calls Constable Warren. He looks across at the policewoman. "If you would, sir." She beckons him to walk to her. The ambulance man goes over near the water, leaving Olivia and Poppy on their own. "What you said earlier, Mum, about the blue lips and nails? She had a big dose of sedative. Do you think that's what killed her?" "Her cyanosis is severe, so that indicates a significant level of some sort of sedative, yes." Poppy squints as she thinks. "They'd carry that sort of thing on the ambulance, wouldn't they? She could have self-administered." "Yes, she had medical knowledge. Paramedics are specifically highly trained in overdose symptoms, as well as field medication. The job doesn't give them the time to carry out tests like in a hospital. They just have to save lives and do whatever's necessary, wherever the patient is found." "In that case, I don't believe it was suicide." "Tell me your reasoning," says Olivia. "If you have constant access to serious overdose levels of sedative all day in your job, and you decide to take your own life, you're not going to choose a place like this to do it in? A public place where you could be seen, or saved even. You'd choose somewhere private, and it sounds painful to die like this, so she would have chosen some other way." "I agree," says Olivia. "Let's collect more evidence and talk to the other two people over there. You take the young woman, and I'll talk to the black-haired man." Poppy wanders over to the young woman, and they smile at each other. "I've never seen anyone dead," she says, and she looks at Poppy to get her agreement. "I have, actually. My mum's a lawyer, and we work together on cases." The girl frowns. "I'm Poppy. Kate, before you went to get the pole to get her out of the pond, what did you see?" says Poppy. "She was just floating. I didn't see her fall." "Was there anyone else nearby?" "I didn't see anyone," she says. "But earlier on I did see her talking to a man, though. He'd hurt himself, I think. I thought it was the bloke here with the black hair, but he said it wasn't him. The man she was talking to was a bit angry, a bit shouty. I could see that." "Where were they?" "Over by the trees." She nods her head towards the edge of the woodland. "I saw her walking down from the house just before that. I noticed her because of her uniform. And I know Peter, so I thought he might be around too." "You know Peter, the ambulance man?" says Poppy. "Yeah. How do you know him?" "I trained to be a paramedic with him, but I didn't finish the course." "Why?" "I didn't like it. Too much blood." "What do you do now?" "I work in a pharmacy. I'm a trained dispenser, studying for my next exams to be a junior pharmacist." "What's Peter like?" says Poppy. "He's romantic. He sees himself as a knight in shining armour, hurrying to save the world, doing that job." "Did he ever talk about Madeline?" says Poppy. "He liked her, but she had a bloke." 10 feet away, Olivia is talking to the black-haired man, who she has learnt is called Dan. "Earlier, Dan, before the police arrived, you said that you'd seen Madeline talking to a man who'd hurt himself. Tell me about that." He pulls his eyebrows together as he thinks back. "I'd been walking on the heath and went up to Parliament Hill viewing point, and we were looking out over London." "You just said we. Who was with you?"
"My mate Freddie."
"And where's he now?"
"He had to go. His mum's unwell."
"At what stage on the walk from Parliament Hill to here did Freddie leave?"
"Straight away. He went down to the other tube station in the town."
"So you walked on your own from there and down to the pond? When did you see Madeline talking to the other man?"
"As soon as I came out of the trees."
"You thought he'd hurt himself? How did you know?"
"He looked distraught, like he was in pain."
"Madeline didn't have a backpack of medical supplies with her. How was she attending to him?"
"I think she did have supplies, a bag or something."
"And what did the man look like?" says Olivia.
"Average sort of bloke."
"Hair colour? Short, tall, clothing?" She opens her eyes and waits for him.
"Brown hair." Wearing a blue jacket, I think.
Dan Barker, calls Constable Warner.
Excuse me,
he says, and walks away with a smile on his face. 2 forensics officers are approaching down the long slope from the house as Poppy and Olivia walk back to stand near each other again.
The girl there is called Kate, says Poppy. She knows Peter the ambulance man, and they trained together, and now she works in a pharmacy. She thinks that Peter liked Madeline, and wanted to go out with her, but she was in a relationship, so nothing ever happened. That ties in with what Peter said about him being her confidant.
The black-haired chap was very uncomfortable when I was talking to him, says Olivia. They both watch him now having a conversation with the police officer 30 feet away on the bank of the pond. He lied throughout his testimony, so it's hard to know which bits are true, and he was largely fabricating what he said. I didn't believe most of it. When you get a witness like that, you have to consider if anything they say is true. Some people just see themselves as going through life and getting away with things all the time. It becomes their identity, slipping through the net. Maybe that's what he's like.
What did he say in his answers?
That he saw Madeline attending to an average-looking man who'd hurt himself, says Olivia, and that the reason he was on the heath was because that he had been with a friend who had to go and see his unwell mother. I don't believe that. It's a classic excuse that people grasp for when they haven't planned their lying very well.
The events leading up to the body being discovered seem odd too, says Poppy. The ambulance man said he was taking care of an old lady and didn't notice Madeline walking off. That seems odd, doesn't it?
There's also a specific inconsistency across 2 witnesses. Peter said Madeline had no medical bag, and Dan said she did have one. Both can't be correct, although Peter is the more reliable witness.
Who's this angry man coming down the hill?
Says Poppy, looking over her mother's shoulder. They both watch as a brown-haired man with green overalls half runs and half walks down the slope from Kenwood House. Let's hear what he says to P.C. Warren, says Olivia, and they take a few paces towards the policewoman who is still talking to Dan. The man walks right up to Warren.
I was called and told about my girlfriend,
he says.
What's your name, sir?
Warren smiles at him, as you can see that he's upset.
Stephen Keel. Can I see her?
There's a white plastic tent now over the ground where Madeline's body lays. Shall we let the scientists do their work for a few minutes, Mr. Keel? Let me talk to them in a second. Could I ask you to wait over there near the bench with the others? And I'll come back to you. Keel stops and doesn't know what to do. Olivia sees him hesitating and walks over. Shall I take the gentleman and we can have a sit-down, officer?
Thank you, madam,
says Warren. Come with me. I'm Olivia, she says to Stephen. She holds out her arm to coax him to move, and after a second, Stephen slowly walks to the bench, and they sit down. Poppy sits the other side of her mother. Stephen, is it? Says Olivia. She's gentle with him and notices that he has scratches on his arms that are still fresh. Are you all right? Those scratches look nasty. Did you hurt yourself?
I was working,
he says.
I'm a tree cutter, an arborist. I was cutting down the ash when I got the call. Do you know how she died?
That's what the 2 people intend to finding out. Tell me about her. How long were you 2 together?
3 years.
Happy?
Very,
he says.
Except when her work partner got to her. Always nagging at her. Him over there, Peter Bloody Marshall.
What did he do? Says Olivia.
Always going on to her about me.
How do you know that?
She told me, nearly every day when she got home. She was sick of it. She'd put in for a transfer. He didn't like that. He would have done anything to stop her leaving.
Who called you today to say that she'd had an accident? Says Olivia.
Kate.
He nods over to the dark-haired young woman, who is now sitting on the grass with a paperback book on her lap.
You know Kate? She lives near us in Hackney, 2 rows over.
Olivia turns to Poppy, who understands what her mother is saying without any words being spoken, and the teenager stands up and walks over to Kate, while Olivia continues her conversation with Stephen. Poppy sits down on the grass next to the woman.
Stephen's upset, she says.
She watches Kate's face to see if she's going to lie.
Sad for him. It was a good idea to call him.
What?
He didn't know about Madeline, so it was a good idea to call him. I didn't call him. Sorry, my mistake,
says Poppy.
You know him, though? Yeah, they live round the corner from me. How well did you know Madeline?
Says Poppy.
Not at all. But you were close to Peter, her work colleague. Not close. He was a mate, that's all. Do you know the guy over there with black hair, talking to the police officer? Of course not. Stephen Kale,
calls PC Warren, and he leaves Olivia to walk to the policewoman.
I need to talk to my mum,
says Poppy.
Speak later.
She stands up and walks to the bench and sits down next to Olivia.
It's another inconsistency,
says Poppy.
Kate says that she didn't call Stephen, the boyfriend.
That's an easily provable lie, says Olivia. The police can just check their mobile phone records. But let's think about motive. She holds up her left hand and counts on her fingers. 1. Peter, the ambulance man. He liked Madeline and was possibly in love with her, but she didn't like him, and more than that, wanted to get a transfer to another ambulance station or to another partner. Stopping her leaving could be a motive to kill. She holds her next finger. 2. Stephen, the boyfriend. He says he didn't like Peter's closeness to Madeline, but if she wore the trousers in that couple, did he get sick of being pushed around? Or did he think that her complaints about Peter were fabricated, and in fact she was considering leaving her boyfriend? That could be a motive to kill.
3,
says Poppy.
Kate, the dark-haired girl. She knows Peter and may know Stephen. Was she jealous of Madeline? She had access to sedatives through her job, so she could have caused the overdose.
There's another person here who seems disconnected to the others, says Olivia. Dan, the man with black hair. I'm certain that he wasn't here on the heath with a friend called Freddie. But why lie? Also his reported sighting of Madeline attending to a man with brown hair down here without her medical kit. None of that fits either.
Olivia and Poppy Street,
calls PC Warren. They walk over to the officer who has just been handed an iPad by one of the forensics team, and she's reading from it. Is that the cause of death? Says Olivia.
Not something I can tell you, madam,
says Warren. Drowning under the effects of an overdose of benzodiazepine, says Olivia. She can tell from the woman's face that she's correct.
What were your movements this afternoon?
Says Warren. Lunch over the road, then we looked at the paintings in Kenwood and saw Peter Marshall searching for his colleague. Then we walked down here and saw the gaggle of people around the body, and we don't know her.
Why did you say you didn't know her, madam?
Because nearly everyone else here does know her in some way.
Go on.
Olivia and Poppy relate the connections that they have discovered from talking to the people in the group. They could all have got hold of benzodiazepine, either directly or through someone else in the group who they know. So access to the weapon is not the differentiator. There's no forensic evidence that identifies one person more than the other. They all had opportunity too, as they were all near her in the afternoon at some stage.
As were you,
says Warren. Agreed, which is why I stress that we don't know her, because the route to finding the killer is to answer the question, who's lying more than the others? And? Says the policewoman. Dan was the biggest liar when he spoke to me, says Olivia. Why don't we all talk to him again and explore that? Warren thinks for a moment. Could I conjecture that your discussions with these 4 witnesses haven't revealed any more than our discussions? All right, says Warren. Dan Barker, calls Warren. A moment, sir, if you will. He walks over. This lady's got some questions for you, sir. When we spoke earlier, Dan, says Olivia, you lied to me about your friend. I think you invented a name for him. Freddie, wasn't it? With Constable Warren here as a witness, what's the truth? Did Freddie exist at all? Dan's face looks more concerned than earlier. I can put you under caution, sir, if that helps you recall the details, says Warren. This is a murder case, so it's serious. What I said was true, he begins. I was up on the heath with a friend, but he was working. They all wait for him to continue. And he takes a deep breath out. It was Stephen. Stephen, the boyfriend of Madeline, says Poppy. That makes you look super suspicious. Because people lie for a reason, and you hiding the fact that you know the deceased's boyfriend makes you look guilty. Did you kill her? No, I'm not a killer. Just a killer's assistant, Dan. Aren't you? No, I've done nothing. Did Stephen tell you to lie? Says Poppy. All I agreed to do was go along with his story. Olivia turns to PC Warren. You've got enough to arrest Dan and Stephen on suspicion, officer. I'm sure you'd agree. And Warren nods. She reads down his rights, then asks him to put his hands out, and she zip-ties them together, then walks over to Stephen and repeats the exercise. As the policewoman assembles the group to walk back up the long slope to the mansion house, Olivia and Poppy are standing nearby. What really happened today? Says Poppy to Stephen, and he looks sad now. She was going to leave me, he says. All that nagging by Peter. Finally convinced her that I was no good. There's scratches on your arms, says Olivia. You said you'd been working. Were you on the heath? And he nods to her. There's an old ash tree up on the other side near Highgate. She called me to say she'd been called out here to Kenwood for an old lady, so I asked her to meet up. But we argued. I'd stolen some of her sedatives from a work bag weeks ago, so I had the means to end her life. She told me she was leaving me. I couldn't face it. No one else was going to have her. Come along, sir, says Warren, and she leads the men off up the grass. Olivia and Poppy watch the group disappearing up the slope, then turn and make their way back through the woodland. They reach the highest point of Hampstead Heath. This is my favourite view of London, says Poppy. Why is that? You can see right across the whole place from up here. Look over there from Canary Wharf all the way down through the financial district and the Gherkin, then the London Eye, Big Ben, and down the river towards Richmond. This feels like my city, Mum. But I was born here, wasn't I? Yes, St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, says Olivia. After uni I'm going to travel a bit, but I'm going to come back here to live. I want to qualify as a solicitor, like you did. Then we'll see what happens. The world's your oyster, Poppy. The daughter puts her arm around her mother's shoulders, and they stand and look out over the vast, sprawling trees, houses, and roads of London. The Street Files, a complete mystery short story, every Wednesday.